At any live event, whether it's a small club gig or a massive festival, there's this one invisible force that can bring the entire thing to a screeching halt. And I'm not talking about a bad performance or a tough crowd. I'm talking about power. Getting it right is absolutely crucial, but getting it wrong, well, that can be a show-stopping disaster. So let's follow the power and figure out how to keep the lights on and the music playing.
Yeah, just imagine a sudden, silent stage, no lights, no sound. It is the absolute nightmare scenario for anyone in this business. And when a breaker trips and sends everyone scrambling, the really frustrating part is that the technicians will check all the gear and find nothing wrong. And this is where you get those super frustrating, no fault found situations. Because the problem isn't the equipment, it's the electricity itself.
And here's the culprit. The technical name for our show-stopping villain is overcurrent. And what is that? Well, basically it's just too much juice trying to squeeze through a wire that can't handle it. This creates a ton of heat, and that's exactly what things like circuit breakers are designed to stop, by shutting everything down before things catch fire or get damaged. So you gotta remember, the gear itself is probably totally fine. But when you plug it all in together, the combined demand can be way more than the circuit was ever designed to handle. To solve this puzzle, first we've got to understand how power even gets to the stage in the first place. Okay, section 1, following the power river. And to get a handle on this, we're going to trace the journey of electricity all the way from its source to the stage. And trust me, it's not as complicated as it sounds if you stop thinking about wires and start thinking about a river. This right here is the key idea. I want you to picture a backwards river. Forget everything you know about rivers flowing out to sea. In our world, you've got this huge river of power flowing into the venue, and our job is to channel it into smaller and smaller streams until it finally gets to the outlets on stage. And here's what that main river actually looks like in the real world. It's a huge, high-current supply. You might see a connection like this on the side of a venue, just waiting for a big production company to come plug their own system into it. This is ground zero.
All right, so how does that big river get broken down? First up, you've got your main supply. Let's say a monster 128 amps. That gets a primary split into smaller streams, maybe two 64 amp lines. Then one of those gets a secondary split and becomes the dedicated stream just for the stage. And finally, that stage stream is broken down into the final circuits you actually plug into. In this case, 4 separate 16 amp circuits.
Here's another great analogy for you. Think of each of those final 16 amp circuits like a single channel on your mixing board. I mean, you can't just keep cranking the gain up and up forever, can you? Eventually, it's gonna clip. A power circuit is exactly the same. It has a maximum capacity, a hard limit that you just can't go over. All right, section 2, calculating your power draw. So, we know every circuit has a limit. The big question is, how do we stay under it? Well, it all comes down to some surprisingly simple math. This is the skill that'll save your show. Okay, this is it. This is the one formula you absolutely have to burn into your brain. To figure out how much current, or amps, a piece of gear is drawing, you just take its power rating in watts and you divide it by the system's voltage. Watts divided by volts equals amps. Let's put it to work. Okay, so let's imagine we're setting up a typical backline for a band. We're in the US, so our system voltage is 120 volts, and we're plugging everything into just one of those 16 amp circuits we were talking about. And our one mission, should we choose to accept it, is to not go over that 16 amp limit. All right, let's start adding this up. First, let's plug in two 50-watt guitar amps. Together, they're only pulling about 0.84 amps. Easy peasy. Now we add a 500-watt bass amp. That adds another 4.17 amps, bringing our total to just over 5. Still looking good. Next, the synth sig pedals go in. That's about another 2.2 amps. But now, here comes the big one, 4 active stage monitors. They add another 7.6 amps to the load. And just like that, we're at a grand total of 14.81 amps. This chart really puts it all into perspective. I mean, just look at how close we are to that 16 amp maximum. There is almost zero headroom left. So what do you think happens when the singer decides to plug in their phone charger or maybe a single little work light into that same circuit? Pop. The breaker trips and the stage goes dark and silent. Okay, section 3, the rules of the game. Now, doing the math is one thing and it's super important, but when you scale up from a little club gig to a bigger event, you're not just playing with suggestions anymore. You're dealing with serious safety standards and the law. So what even is a temporary system? Well, professional standards, like the UK's BS 7909, have a really simple definition. It really doesn't matter if it's there for one night or a 3-month tour. If the plan is to eventually take it down, it's considered temporary, and a much higher set of rules kicks in. Now, these standards, they split systems into two main buckets. First, you have small and simple. We're talking tiny here. Think less power than it takes to run a few kitchen kettles, all plugged into a regular wall socket. But then basically everything else, from a small generator for an outdoor wedding to a full festival stage, falls into the large and complex category. And that's where the requirements really jump up. And for any of those large or complex systems, these things aren't suggestions. They are absolute must-dos. You have to have a designated, competent person in charge. The system has to be designed by a pro and then tested by a skilled person. And, most importantly, you have to get the official paperwork to prove all of it. Which brings us to our final section, putting safety on paper. This might be the most crucial part of professional power management. You see, it's not enough to just do the work. You have to document it. This right here is what separates the amateurs from the pros. Just look at this. This is chaos, a tangled mess of cables that hasn't been properly managed, tested, or signed off on by anybody. This isn't just messy, it's a huge safety and liability nightmare waiting to happen for the event manager, the venue, and everyone on that site. And this is control. What you're looking at here are examples of what's called a completion certificate and a schedule of test results. These pieces of paper are the end result of a professional process. This is the proof that a qualified pro has designed it, installed it, tested it, and, crucially, put their name on the line for its safety. And that's the key takeaway here. These forms are basically your shield. If you're an event manager or a venue owner, demanding this paperwork is proof that you did your job right. It shows that the power system isn't a hazard, that it follows the rules, and that it's safe for every single person there. So there you have it. We have gone from the total chaos of a tripped breaker all the way to the calm control of a certified, safe system. You now have the basic formula to manage a simple setup. But here's the most important thing to take away from all this. Knowing how to do the math is great, but knowing when to say, whoa, this is bigger than me, and call in a certified pro, that's the real secret to a safe and successful event.